Welcome to the Draconic and Friends official podcast, where we peel back the curtain on puzzle games and the people who make them. I'm Syrenne, the producer at Draconic and Friends, and I'm joined as always by Alan Hazelden, the head Draconic at Draconic and Friends.
Hey there.
Today, we're joined by Ben and Phoenix, who you may know from past episodes of the podcast, as well as members of the development team for the Electrifying Incident. How are you both doing today?
Hello again. Yeah, fine.
I'm doing also really good.
Awesome.
Bit of a difference in our energy there.
A little bit of a difference. Well, is there a difference, or are you just British?
I think this is just American and British.
Uh-huh.
And we are already off to the races. This is our episode recorded after the release of the Electrifying Incident to talk about the game, with a heads up that there will be some level of spoilers about this game in this podcast discussion. If you would like to remain fully unspoiled, go ahead and stop listening. Go get the game. It is $5 at full price. It's on Steam and itch, and you can play the whole game in 45 minutes, and then you can come back.
You can play the game before we're done talking.
Exactly.
You can just leave this muted. You can just play the game while we're talking.
Yeah, go listen, scrub to the end, give us a play number, rate and review us, 5-star runtime. We keep everything to an hour or less and then come back and listen to it again. All right.
Well, if we sort of slowly drop hints throughout the podcast, so we can sort of play along, right?
Yeah, like they could play, and we could talk as if we are in the situation with them.
So that one that you think like, oh man, it's out of reach. How could you possibly get it? The grab arm can reach across the gap. Whoa!
It's just Alan saying wrong.
Yes, I think that we're good on that. If you're still here, we're going to talk very openly about this game and its development.
Okay, so now you might be confused because there's a button, but there's no block to put on it. But don't worry, you can go back to the previous room, pick up that crate, and put it on that button, and you'll be all sorted.
All right, Alan. Listen here, asshole. So, on a previous podcast recording, we talked, I believe it was the one with Ben.
It sure was.
We talked very specifically about how this game was a confined scope so that you would not feel as tempted to go in and upend everything at the last minute like you did for A Good Snowman, and a couple weeks before launch, just make the second half of the game.
You can really hear the desperation in Syrenne's voice.
No, this is not desperation. This is not pleading. Pleading was the first Ben episode. Frustration is the second Ben episode.
Is there any level that's the same as the original Jam prototype?
Ooh,
I think the third room at the very beginning of the game.
Okay, yeah.
And I think that's
I'm so mad.
Third room and the room that's like, well, I guess it's rotated, but the room where you have to drop a crate into the void the first time through, that's unchanged as like a layout. It's not the identical room though.
Y'all, listeners, I tried so hard. The way that the secret that I guess bonus spoiler if you finished the game and came back and you noticed why do I only have 6 out of 7 achievements on Steam? It's because there's a second ending, and Alan timed when he was going to begin suggesting and implementing it to when Mari was at an event and I was off of work.
That's a coincidence.
No. And then on Tuesday, we don't work Mondays at Trackneck. Tuesday, I log in, my jaw drops in horror. An hour later, I get on a all hands, and Alan says, "So, Syrenne, how did you feel opening Slack this morning?"
Look, I think it was a really well-scoped addition to the game.
It was a well-scoped project up front. I was so proud of that scope, and then you blew it up.
Didn't blow it up.
Yes, you
did. I started thinking about it on the Friday. I continued to think of it.
You blew up the scope before the second ending. The scope was, we don't change anything.
Yeah, but that would have been a bad game.
It would not have been a bad game. It was a fine game.
The thing is that Alan's time is free, effectively.
God damn it.
And I'm an enabler of this bad behavior.
Yeah, no.
By implementing things.
All of y'all, all of y'all are at least partially responsible.
This is a 3 versus 1 call, really.
No, this is a 1 versus 3, and I'm winning.
But no, like, so, yes, before we started thinking about the secret ending, there'd already been, like, tweaks to the level layout. It was less of, like, we gotta, like, redo this from scratch, and more like, well, here's a spot where, like, the flow, like, doesn't quite work, or here's a spot where the difficulty curve spikes, or here's a spot where you just need to run around and, like, go back and forth between rooms, several rooms apart, like, a bit too many times. Small tweak after small tweak, the mid-game kind of diverged. And also, actually, the other big change was we decided to move where the reactor was. Because in the original game, the reactor is all the way to the bottom right of the level. And it was like the reactor was at the bottom of the screen. And that wouldn't have really, like, framed itself well with a 3D thing. Because, like, then the reactor would be, like, kind of occluding, like, where the player character is. It wouldn't really be able to be big and impressive. So we were like, okay, well, we should move it so the reactor is at the top of the room. But if we're going to do that, well, we might as well move it so that you pass near the reactor and then you have to go away again. And yeah, just bits and pieces.
Just bits and pieces.
But they were bits and pieces that was largely on me, and I wasn't a bottleneck for anything else getting done. So it was fine.
I think most of my contribution to the sort of alternate ending was in fixing that kind of unintended interaction, right, with between the door and the crate.
Yeah, so I mean, it would have been like, I think, like a week before we dropped the demo.
Yeah.
We were talking about, like, okay, here's the build we've got. How do we feel about it? And there was just this awkward interaction with, like, crates indoors. I can't even remember what the behavior we started with was, but it didn't feel good.
I think that, like, initially the crate and your claw or whatever would get stuck in the door whenever you tried to move it. Like, it just, you couldn't get it out, you couldn't push it through, it just would just get you stuck. And then I think I fixed that so you could push crates through doors, and then that was able to be exploited throughout the entire game. And so we removed it. And then Alan goes, oh, wait, but we could use that to do a secret ending. And then Ben re-implements it.
Yeah, because I think like a week before the demo dropped, we were like, okay, we need to figure out something. And the easiest thing to do at that point was like, okay, well, if there's anything in the door, it will just stay open. And that was nice and simple because you don't need any animation changes for that. And then, yeah, we released the demo and people used that. And it was a bit more broken than I thought it would be, which is a good problem to have. But yeah, like a bunch of people kind of broke the demo with that. I was like, yeah, that's interesting, but it's probably a bit too broken. It lets you really bypass entire puzzles, and that doesn't feel great. So we changed that behavior. We patched the demo so that, like, no, you just can't take anything through a closed door. If the door's closed, it will just shove it together, and, like, the box will be jammed, or yeah. But yeah, it was certainly interesting how people could break puzzles and squeeze stuff through. And also people liked finding that stuff. Was the interesting thing about watching people play the demo, is that the people who did that stuff felt smart about it.
Is that about as smart as I felt when I was like, we should experiment with the Godot engine within a strict 6-week window?
Maybe.
I remember, Alan, actually, you came to me in a DM saying, I've got this idea for an alternate ending.
In a DM?
I don't think I was very positive about it.
Alan?
Yeah.
Can't say it's a coincidence.
I kind of lightly discouraged it because I felt like it wouldn't be discoverable enough, right?
Well, I'm sorry, but why did you firmly be like, has Syrenne thought about this?
I think I was the opposite. I think I encouraged it. Well, I didn't.
I know you encouraged it.
It's not my fault.
No, in Phoenix's defense, Phoenix is the only one here. Phoenix has not shipped many commercial games before. Ben and Alan, you both know.
Yeah, we know that we've done this in the past. It's fine.
It's about having past experience with it to do it better this time.
Have we recouped, Alan?
We have not recouped.
It's all in the long tail, right? It's fine.
Of a $5 game.
Yeah, it'll be in bundles and all that.
Maybe 6 weeks was there because we were not going to recoup, and it was meant to minimize losses.
I think that 6 weeks was a great time to figure out if we liked Godot enough to want to make a bigger game.
Yeah, we did, and then we moved on.
It was not enough to make a game to the polished quality that we'd want to release something publicly. So it was inevitable that there was going to be more work needed after that. Now, maybe if I hadn't been increasing the scope, it would have been like 3 extra weeks instead of 6 extra weeks. But that only reduces it from like 3/4 of the budget instead of the whole budget. It's not the be all and end all of does this game recoup or not.
Listeners, this is what I sound like when I'm mad. This is your first time hearing this.
But yeah, I mean, I think it worked out great. I think everyone on this call can agree that the reviews love the secret ending.
Yeah, the secret ending is a very positive response. I like the content that I've seen in the community page for Steam, where I saw someone bring in like 11 crates into the end area or something like that. That's very fun to see.
You need 5 for the secret ending. I think I managed like 7 or 8. I was like, okay, there's enough flexibility here that like even if people get stuck on one puzzle, then there'll be multiple ways to get to the secret ending. So it's fine if each individual way of breaking the game is kind of hard and awkward. But yeah, like people found much more broken ways than I was expecting, which is great, and they really love it.
Yeah, you didn't even need to design it, right?
I kind of didn't design it. I made like a couple of level changes to make it possible, but then a couple of those I'd made the change because I was like, oh, well, it's impossible if I don't make this change. And then later I'd realize, oh, no, there's another way of doing that. But yeah, let's dig into the timeline of how quickly this happened, because I think it's interesting. Like, I think we would have been playtesting. It was probably like a like Monday or Tuesday. We shared a build of the full game with a slightly larger group of players just to get some final testing. And they did some interesting stuff I wasn't expecting. Like somebody found a way to smuggle crates into that final reactor room, which I didn't realize you could do. And people... There was a bug where parts of the reactor were like intangible, but that meant that some people would like walk around the outside of the room and like do that final puzzle from inside the reactor, which was interesting. And people were also just complaining that like, well, it's kind of unsatisfying that you have to... Oh, actually, yeah, so the previous version of the puzzle actually was you're in the reactor room and you've got 3 crates and you have to arrange them such that 2 of the crates are not electrified, and then you push the last crate in, and that creates a join between the right side of the reactor and the left side of the reactor. So in some ways, the default ending was more similar to the secret ending you have now. And that worked, and it was a more interesting puzzle. But like, it was people just said like it was a little unsatisfying that you had to be electrified in order to make that happen. I was like, well, sure, but like that's unavoidable. And then I was like, wait, that's not unavoidable. Or rather, actually, yeah. So I was like, oh, like it's unavoidable that you're getting electrocuted during the ending, but we could just simplify it so that in the main ending you are just like powering the electricity on with like the crate to your body, and you're a direct part of the circuit. And then, but you could have the old normal ending as a secret ending if you get a couple of extra crates into the room. And that's kind of interesting. You'd still be getting electrocuted, but like maybe it would be like indirect. Maybe that would feel interesting.
Yeah. I think that's why I wasn't convinced.
Yeah, like
initially.
If you're still like getting shocked, it feels less like, I don't know, the difference between the electricity going straight through you and beside you feels not as impactful.
Yeah, so I sent that DM to Ben at that stage when I was like, well, here's an idea. Like, I'm not telling Syrenne about this. Like, here's an idea. This is what we could do. I don't know. But then I kept thinking about it over the weekend, and there was discussion in the testing space about it, and somebody pointed out that like, oh, if you had a door that closed when the power came on rather than opened when the power came on, then you could have the power cut off, or like the door closes, touches the grabber arm, that makes the grabber arm retract, and then you could make it so that the monster isn't getting electrocuted. I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna make a special door type that closes when the power comes on. That would just be awkward. But like maybe there is a way of just moving off the button at the right time, and then it all worked out. And that was only possible because, like, when in that version of the demo, which was completely broken, where you could carry crates through doors, but you could also just have an entire grabber arm coming through the door, and if the grabber arm was there, the door wouldn't close. And that was a bit too broken, so we went through various versions of that. I'm like, okay, well, no, let's make it so if the grabber arm's in the door will close and retract the grabber arm. But if you're next to the crate, then you can carry it through as like a one-time short distance thing.
Just kind of looks visually right, I think.
Yeah. So it's like the perfect set of conditions for this epiphany in my brain of like, oh no, we actually already have it set up so that this is possible. We just need to change the level geometry. And so I came in on Tuesday morning, like, I've had a brainwave. This is what we need to do. And by the time Syrenne was awake, it was already implemented.
So really, Syrenne, you should get up earlier if you want to stop this sort of thing.
You're so right.
Yeah, why aren't I up at 3 and 4 in the morning? Why aren't I working all hours?
Yeah. I think I have one sort of frustration still with the game, which is totally doesn't matter at all because it doesn't affect anything. It's just so I spent ages trying to get the grabber arm to look right. And I think it looks decent now, but without getting too technical, like if the grabber arm goes up or down too much, it just looks really broken. Obviously, it's a 2D game, so we can largely avoid that. But at some point, I want to try to send the code to someone who's more intelligent and say, like, how do I get this to look right? I don't know if it's my vector maths or just like something to do with how it's set up in the engine, or
like when the grapple like swings wildly to one side or the other while you're turning, or
no? So it's vertical difference. The grabber arm is just a bunch of it's one model that has 3D bones, which is kind of how all characters are animated. It deforms the 3D geometry. But if the grabber arm moves up or down too much, like vertically, then all the bones do weird things. I don't understand what's going on.
That's bizarre.
Yeah. And we were in this like 6-week schedule, and I was like trying not to waste time, but kind of just got pushed back, and the frustration's still there.
I think this is the same level of, oh man, this really sucks about this game. That I felt after we shipped A Good Snowman, where I was like, you don't leave footprints in the snow. The worst thing about this game that we just released is you don't leave footprints in the snow. Which, sure, fair, but also, if that's the worst thing, if that's your biggest regret about the game, then you're doing great.
Need to go add footprints to Snowman.
No.
I mean, I think it'd look really nice.
We updated the credits to A Good Snowman and added localization, and that took twice as long as we thought it would. We're not adding footprints to Snowman.
Can we add footprints to the Electrifying Incident?
No. We will not be doing that. We will also not be adding footprints to the next game.
Hey, you don't know what,
Yes, I do.
This seems like a challenge to sneak in footprints.
I'm making a note right now.
Listeners.
I think with the grapple, the wonkiness that I added to the grapple was I was trying to figure out how to make it look electrified.
Oh yeah.
And so I needed the particle effect for stuff that looks electrified to be put on the grapple. But the grapple changes size. And so my lazy solution was to put the same particle effect on every single bone joint. And so when it's only one joint long, you have 8 different electrifying particles stacked on top of each other in the exact same spot. Nice. Which no one has pointed out. I was waiting for someone to go, that looks odd, but no one has said it, so.
Yeah, never noticed.
It's all coming out now. All the crimes.
We're going to get refunds from people over this. They'll be like, there's 8 times as much electricity on the grab arm as there should be. Syrenne, what's your biggest regret about the game that's about the end product and not the process?
The journey the friends were the journey along the way. Anyways. Here's my biggest regret. How come the solution video that we recorded at the beginning of development doesn't get me through the final game?
Hey, I made more recent solution videos towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
I think every level change we made was a noticeable improvement.
Let's talk about the ending cutscene.
With the monster in the bed?
Yes. I like that a lot.
I'm very happy with that. I'm very happy how that came out. Another thing, I am sad that the monster doesn't have bandages on its head or some kind of thing like that.
You can't be keeping the scope creep conversation going. It's bad for my blood pressure.
It just looks like the monster is chilling out in a bed rather than hurt at all. But I do really like it.
Well, monsters heal quickly.
Monsters do heal quickly.
Yeah, they don't even mind being electrocuted for 6 hours while they get extracted safely.
Also, going back to the scope creep conversation for a second. Don't think I didn't notice that the only time I proposed a scope creep feature, it's the one that didn't make it in.
What was that?
A counter at the end to let you know how many times you got electrocuted.
Gosh, I do not even remember that suggestion.
But that would have been so good.
If you think you've got a good idea and we didn't do it, you should just keep repeating it until we do it.
No. You know when I recommended that?
Too early.
The first week of development, when it was time to talk about any changes that we wanted to implement from the original game.
No,
the same time that we decided on the ending cutscene.
Actually, I think
what you need to do is just DM me or Phoenix. Say, hey, we got this thing. needs to go.
Yeah. No, I do actually think this is an interesting divergence of production philosophy between the two of us, which is that my approach to production is very short-term focused. I mostly care about, this is the thing we've got right now. If we only have one more week's worth of work, what is the single most important thing to change about this? And so when we're in like the first week of development, I can't even think about like, oh yeah, we should have a count of how many times you got electrocuted, because there's so many more bigger things on my mind. And so the only time I'll even allow myself to think about, oh yeah, a counter would be nice, is like once we're right at the end. And before that, it's like, it's flooded out.
Yeah, whereas I was able to sit at the beginning and picture the end product based on the first early render and the puzzle script game. And I was like, okay, that's what the game's going to be. And that is what we made originally. And I was like, all right, what's a cute thing that is not actually going to balloon the scope? Oh, that'll be easy. We can just keep a variable hidden and then reveal it at the end.
And Syrenne, did you add that to the to-do list?
No, because everyone just kind of at me when I said it. And so I said, okay, people don't want to do that. No worries.
I add stuff to the to-do list that people go about all the time.
Yes, and I don't like that. So I'm not going to do it myself. I'm not going to be a hypocrite about production.
I think the solution here is that you should, Syrenne, you should start removing Alan's suggestions and replacing it with your own, is what I'm hearing.
If I start removing Alan's suggestions, then he's going to get mad at me, and I don't need that.
No. Either I will notice, and then that's a data point that I cared about that thing, or I won't notice, and that's a data point that I didn't really care.
Okay. Anyways, like I said, the divergence of how Alan and I can imagine a project. I can sit at the beginning of development and immediately think about the final product. And then I'm like, okay, I know what the goal is. So my thought process is creating the easy, crunch-free, stress way to get from here to there in the time and budget that we have. And Alan revisits everything every week.
I can picture the end product. I just I want to know how I'm getting there, and when I'm getting there, I want to focus on the stuff that's most important.
You know, we have phrases for people like you.
I think you should list them.
No. No. They are some mental health diagnoses. Anyways, we call them ADHD developers. Regardless. What else do we want to talk about from this game's development that is maybe a little more positive for all four of us? We like Godot. Loaded silence. Melody, keep that silence in. Melody, I want you. Melody, here's what I want you to do. 1, keep this part in. 2, double that silence.
50% of the podcast is silence.
I want you, if this were a video podcast, I would play with that format so much just for that very loaded silence. Anyways, wow. Tell me how you all really feel. You're all like, well, nothing we did makes Syrenne happy. I'm such an...
I mean,
you know...
it was more than a few weeks ago, so I can't really remember the development.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's
we
kind of
shipped
ages
this game
ago.
like almost 2 weeks ago, you know?
Yeah,
you know, when I get recommendations from former employers, when I was in school, you know what the sentence was? A joy to work with. A joy to be around. A pleasure to have in class. I was that person. What happened? How am I the villain here?
You worked with too many indie developers.
How am I the villain?
You're not the villain. There's no villains here. We're all on the same side, on the side of quality.
Then how come when I said Is there anything that all four of us were happy with? Everyone went deeply silent.
Well, it's really because we all have kind of intricate, detailed responses in our own nuanced ways.
All right,
that we're
Phoenix, you're
formulating.
volunteering.
Okay, so I mean, the lightning electricity looks neat.
Yeah, Adam did a good job. Anything else?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, the visuals of the game, came together really well.
Adam's wonderful at his job. Ben, do you have anything that's not about the graphics?
I mean, the input's fine. Works. It doesn't get in the way.
The input doesn't get in the way.
No, I mean, like, you're like, because you worked on this, and like, I've definitely seen people comment on this, how like it's got the same responsive feeling that a Monsters Expedition does, where you can tap inputs really quickly, and the character will just blend and move as fast as it needs to, and like that's easy to like not think about too much, but it's not as easy to implement that as you might think.
Yeah, I was just reaching for something that I did that I could compliment,
and I agree that you should be complimented on that.
It's really good. I've the people that I've seen play the game or whatever, like that's almost always the thing that they go to is it's very fun to spam directions on the character.
I'm not so sure about the diagonal input that we have. It sort of like alternates when you hold it. When you hold like up and right, it'll like, I don't know. It feels okay on keyboard, but
and there's also a thing where you can you send the grabber arm out when there's nothing in front of you, and then tap a direction, and the grabber arm will like swing wildly without collision, which is fine. It's like it looks bad, but also it's the least important thing, and nobody cares.
It's also a bit silly. I like swinging it at its full length, left or right, and seeing it go through the entire area.
I think the grabber, I just kind of had to. At some point, you just have to say, like, yeah, that's good enough.
Like the scope of the game?
I'm happy enough with how it turned out. Yeah. It's fine, right? I think it looks good when it's, like, turning corners, maybe.
Yeah, I think one thing that's, like, tough when you're asking, like, oh, what do you like about the game? Is that there was a lot that was really good about the game 3 weeks into development.
Yes.
And that was actually 6 months ago because we worked on it for 6 weeks and then put it on hold and then came back to it to ship it. And so, like, that's not even part of our brain anymore.
What is happening with you? What? Is this what Subway Surfers does to someone?
Look, as of the release of this podcast, we are announcing our next game in 1 week. We've been really excited about making that game for 6 months.
Yes.
Like this small thing.
I can remember development stories from 12 years ago down to lines of code. What's going on?
One thing I did really like, actually, was the feeling of the development team, right? We had, like, everyone checking in every day on the Slack.
Yeah. I'm glad that everyone had a good culture.
Especially because, like, this is my first time being in a commercial project. I wasn't sure whether this is, like, out of the ordinary or meeting up. It was quite nice. I don't know.
You've recorded a podcast with Phoenix before, right?
Yep.
I don't know how much you touched on Phoenix's experience versus sort of expectation. Yeah. Was that the whole podcast?
A lot of it. Ben, why don't you listen to the podcast? We pour our heart and soul into it.
You know what? I don't remember the last time I listened to a podcast. So maybe it's just there's a few that I like, but it's just sort of been music recently.
A few that you like. Is this one of them? You know the episode format. You've now been on 2 of them.
I certainly like being on the podcast.
No, but being on a podcast and listening to a podcast are 2 very different experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also,
I listened to the first episode.
Cool.
And then...
Also, for the benefit of folks that are obviously not behind the scenes, Ben and Phoenix's episodes came out 2 weeks apart, and they were recorded 3 months apart. Ben was recording number 12, and Phoenix was recording number 17.
Cool.
Behind the scenes trivia for y'all. All right. I
think for me, I'm kind of like thinking about development outside of work is not too exciting.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I wouldn't listen to this thing either. I know what happens on this podcast because I'm in every episode. That's how I know. You're right that this is what work is. However, you should do it because it's my work. It's not yours. You can listen to the episodes that aren't with Dracneck and Friends contractors and staff.
True. I will at some point. Like I say, I listened to one of them and it was good.
We have some great episodes. Alan, now that we're fully and totally derailed, if you had to recommend one episode of the podcast that is not with a developer, one of our developers.
Episode 12 with...
that was 14 publicly. Episode 12 publicly was rearranged.
Yeah, we like they get rearranged a lot. I think the episode with Harry was a lot of fun. Say,
episode 8 with Harry is like possibly still the greatest episode on this feed.
Is that Soccer Bond?
Yeah, that's about Soccer Bond.
Nice.
Alan, the one that we recorded yesterday that'll be out in like June.
Yeah, that was fun too.
I think that's up there. I think that this is not me saying if I didn't name this, then I didn't like it. I've liked all of the episodes, but like ones that have a very special energy to them. This one has a special energy, but it's not an energy that I'm happy about. This one is
I think you brought that energy to the recording, though.
You know what? We could all just blame Phoenix because we would have been recording on Tuesday.
No, Phoenix is not our fault. Protect the new people who are new to the industry, Ben. Why are you trying to throw the rookies under the bus?
Phoenix knows I'm joking.
I think that's a good strategy.
Maybe. That's a strong maybe at the end of that. Oh.
Such a role model.
So, if you listen to this podcast and do not follow Dracneck on Blue Sky, go look up when this podcast comes out because we post a clip every week. And by God, do I not know what the clip for this episode is going to be. I can't.
We should probably post a clip that doesn't imply that we hate each other.
Yeah, where's that?
I think it's Friday afternoon energy, right?
Yeah, this is Friday afternoon for US, Friday evening for UK. Yeah. The knives are out. I will tell you that my spouse has already sent me a message saying, was preparing food and heard, listen here, asshole.
I do think that was the start of the downfall for the podcast. You know, that was really where we started building up resentment and
no. This is not
anger.
This is not where I've been building up resentment. This is where I've been unleashing 7 months of resentment.
To be fair, you do say that a lot at work.
Yes. This is exactly how I behave at work when I'm not making content to be consumed and laughed at.
I'm curious, Syrenne, how strongly would you feel if we had just made the level design changes and not snuck that secret ending in 2 weeks before release?
The honest answer is I would have been frustrated but not angry.
And I don't get any bonus points for scoping the bonus ending smartly such that it could be snuck in at the end.
This is the bonus points.
No credits.
Bonus points. This is representative of the bonus points.
We have a great working relationship. Don't worry.
5 years and counting.
Hey, we've shipped a lot of games over that time, and we've not yet killed each other.
Some of those, I don't think I have been frustrated to the extent of, no, that's not true. No.
So we've already established that Ben and I have just lost all of our long-term memory.
Yes.
What was your experience of shipping Monsters Expedition with us? Because that is a complete blank in my mind.
Okay. Yeah. So my experience of shipping monsters. Sure. Let's just turn this back into the pilot episode again. Let's go all the way back. Yeah. So that was fascinating. That was a much more documented and produced development than anything that Alan's ever responded to successfully since. In large part because we had immovable deadlines. It was stressful, but everyone really came together. There was not much scope creep at the end because, like I said, there was immovable deadlines. It really was. We managed to lock that game outside of some unintended solutions 2 months before that game shipped, and then everything in that back 2 months. Adam was preparing marketing materials, and everyone else on the team was scrambling on optimizations. How do we get this thing running at 30 frames per second on the worst iPhone? How do we get this thing running at 30 frames per second on the worst Apple TV? How do we render the fog in such a way that it doesn't tank the frame rate on the low-end devices? And the answer was we fake it. We hired someone in to come in and help take care of the thermals because the phones were getting too hot. Like, that was a lot of Monsters Expedition, and it was a lot of everyone is stressed, but there was a very decided endpoint, and everyone knew that the game was done, and that everything else was just about hitting a target frame rate, and that was a very different perspective. Also, Alan, like, candidly, I think that you were just burned out enough on designing for that game that is a big part of why you did not even, I don't even think you felt tempted at the time to reopen the scope creep conversation, especially because, like, the open world of that thing is just like such a house of cards that, like, you got it to a point you were satisfied.
All of that energy was going into, like, squashing the unintended solutions. I do think you were probably distracted enough with, like, all the other more important stuff that you wouldn't have seen how much I was, like, editing levels towards the final moments.
We also released, like, an update, right?
Oh yes, and that
changed the layout.
And that was planned. That was, like, we knew that was going to happen before we shipped.
Right. Yeah.
So there was that Alan could, like, be like, okay, well, if we need to make any significant changes, we'll do so. And then there was also, frankly, a lot of Alan and I taking meetings, like frantic meetings, about making sure that we're still hitting timeline. It was a normal game development experience. Let me say that. It was. I miss it. God, I miss it. Bring her back.
Absolutely not.
That was.
This is why you always self-fund.
That is what game development is like. I'm so used to that. That is, like, such a, we have an immovable deadline either because of an external partner that is in control of funding, or our internal funding is going to run out. We are 95% satisfied with the game, but oh my God, how are we going to ship this? That is my deepest comfort zone.
This is the point a little bit ago, but I'm curious on how Godot is going to be with that last 2 months in terms of optimization. And
yeah, great question.
Yeah, we didn't really need to worry about that for
the way that we set up things in Electrifying Incident, I wouldn't say is maybe the best, most efficient way, but
it was a functional way.
It seems like it's fine.
Yeah, it's Alan and I were talking about the different. Sometimes it tries to it doesn't try backup rendering methods on 4.3, but it does on 4.4, and Electrifying is in 4.3. So, that's engine version 4.3, not aspect ratio 4:3. But yeah, I don't know. It seems fine. The other thing is yes, Unity comes with a lot of low level bloat, but it also comes with multi-platform exports natively.
Yeah.
I think thinking about monsters, the scope is totally different as well, right?
Yeah.
We have a variety of different island types with each their own models, and all these different special models all dotted around, right?
Yes, there's a lot going on in Monsters Expedition. One, compared to Electrifying Incident, but two, even just under the hood, there's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there's for Electrifying Incident, just nearly everything is just under one or two shaders that are just palette textures.
Yes.
That might or might not have electricity on them. And there's hardly anything that's super custom about that.
Yes.
It's kind of, that was very similar to how it worked on Monsters, right? I think Adam's very good at providing a decent solution.
Yeah.
Oh.
Just from the off. Didn't have to ask him to do anything special. He just knows how to make games.
Yes. Which
is a relief.
The other thing about Monsters is, through a series of weird circumstances, I had somewhat isolated, siloed conversations with individual team members about issues that were being shielded from the rest of the team. Pip and I fretting about how ratings boards would perceive certain trivia, certain object descriptions, and then Mike and I going through and doing the implementation of the localizations, and Adam and I were doing a lot of platform art assets. So there's a lot. Some of those were let's not stress everyone out by making them see a problem that doesn't involve them.
One thing I don't remember is, so in Monsters, there's these exhibitions. You go around and you get a little description, and you see a thing on a little museum plinth. There's a whole load of leech-related technology.
Yeah, there's
I don't know where that came from.
That's all Pip.
You have to wonder about Pip's mental state.
Pip had the great that leech punchline. Every single one, you feel like it's the punchline, and then the next one you're no, this is the punchline. That's Pip. That escalating comedy was. God, I loved that bit. There's so many bits. There were some things where I'm this is going to be a very easy. We need to remove the reference to LSD that it's not actually improving the joke, because that's going to dramatically change our age ratings.
I have to say that I think my favorite exhibit probably is just a visual gag, but it's the sound it makes. the dancing reverse mermaid.
Oh, yes.
Just the little flaps.
It's a good monster. It's good because I also just like it because it's a monster in a monsters museum.
Yeah,
it's just a different kind of monster. Yeah, I don't know. I have favorite exhibits. We have wandered so dramatically off topic that we're just talking about our favorite exhibits from a game that was shipped 5 years ago.
If you go to our merch store, you can buy some of those exhibits on a t-shirt.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
What
Mari and I
mean?
might be adjusting those. Maybe hold off a week.
Okay.
Merch improvements.
So
get the limited edition merch that's about to disappear.
Yeah.
If you're a man.
When you're listening to this podcast, just wait a week from when you're listening to it and then purchase it.
Yeah. Yeah, let's say if you have a femme body, maybe don't.
Oh, I see. That's a positive improvement then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. We're going to wrap it up here because I need to go. I don't drink, but I need to go recover my sanity.
But before we wrap,
This is the last podcast
if you're just
Syrenne
rejoining
recorded.
us, having completed the game, congratulations. Thank you for saving the reactor.
At any cost.
Yeah, we hope the hints helped.
And condolences about your monster being electrocuted.
They're a bit cryptic, the hints, but
Yeah.
And there isn't a third or like a secret, by the way, that we're secretly keeping from you that you might want to go back and dawdle around with a little bit.
All right.
Yeah.
Maybe a third or fourth layer to this game that you can look at.
You're correct. There is not.
There's not
All right.
any other layers.
Thanks everyone for jumping in, and I don't know why I thought I would have even one ally on this call. Man.
There's allies and there's allies. We all love and support you. As we are making certain decisions in our lives.
And do those certain decisions support me?
Sometimes.
Thank you for listening to the Draconeck and Friends official podcast. Our music is by Priscilla Snow, who you can find at ghoulnoise.bandcamp.com. Our podcast artwork is by Adam DeGrandis. Our podcast is edited by Melanie Zawodniak. Please rate and review us on your podcast service of choice, and be sure to tune in next episode for more interesting conversations.